For this video, I have decided to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to release the full unedited version of an interview that I made, and this one is with Purity. So this one is 40 minutes long. You're currently watching the long version. If you don't have 40 minutes, but instead want to watch just 10 minutes of Purity's story, a summary, please head over here where you can watch the edited version. Whichever one you choose to watch, I'm sure you're going to fall in love with Purity.
My name is Purity Paige. I'm a proud translady from Uganda. I am a social scientist by profession. I am a model, an actor, a mental health champion, a human rights activist, and just a girl trying to figure out her life and her future. I was raised in the most homophobic and transphobic community back home in Uganda by Christian parents, and I'm still sad that Christianity religion has caused way so much pain to us and broken our families, because my parents and the entire community were taught how to hate us through religion. And so I was banished by my parents, and every time they always told me when they discovered I was trans, they were like, you know, God hates it, and that's a curse. We have prayed about it and it seems not changing. Can't you try to change? You are bringing shame to us, and we love you, but we don't know how to love you when you are carrying such a curse. And so as time goes on, I was in a closet for a long period of time actually. But for me, it wasn't even a closet because it was obvious. So it was a struggle, but I was doing it for my parents and for the religion, because I would love to think that since I was raised in Christianity with strong Christians, it was basically what I was raised in, and the morals and the traits, and my nature was raised in Christianity. So then I also at some point thought I was actually a curse, because I was like, it was unheard of where I come from, and whenever they could read the Bible, they could always go to Sodom and Gomorrah. Do you want to turn into a stone? Do you want God to punish you the way they punished Sodom and Gomorrah? So I also prayed against my own self. And the fact that I used to mirror my parents' lives, and I felt like it's a comfortable life. They are living a Christian life. They are portraying love, empathy, kindness, those other traits. So it's like that's how a human being is supposed to live. And so if they are living it through Christianity, then that means what they are telling me is true. So I was raised confused. I spent like probably I have never enjoyed my childhood as anybody else did. And that doesn't mean that I was raised in poverty. My parents were really middle class family that could raise us and take care of us and stuff like that. But I wasn't. I was just raised confused, always trying to fight my own self and to please my parents and the entire community around me. And the fact that I was raised with only girls, and I was the last born, and to my mom I was like a miracle child. Where I come from, it's only boys that are supposed to inherit the properties or to take over from, like to become heirs for their parents. So when my mom gave birth to me, she gave birth to 7 girls just because she wanted to look out for a boy. And my father was always on her case that, you know, you cannot only have girls, because then when we die, then our property will go to somebody else. So when my mother gave birth to me, she was so happy she has given birth to a boy, a heir, and everybody was like, I was pampered as a child, and I was really spoiled. But then they were raising a boy, and so at an age where I could understand, and then maybe started getting into adolescence, then they started noticing something really wrong with me, according to them. And then they could always tell me, you know, you cannot behave like a girl, you're going to be the heir of of our family, you cannot behave. So like my life has been like a confusion. So anyway, to cut the story short, I reached a point where I was like, no, this is not going to happen. I can't continue being in a closet, and then still, even when I was in a closet anyway, I was always picked on. Like when I started like understanding and my body growing and entering into adolescence, fully going to school, mostly high school. When I went to high school, I was always bullied by other students, and my parents were very specific to take me to a boys' school because they wanted to raise a boy and to instill those traits of boys and raising a man. So at school I was always bullied. You look like a girl, you behave like a girl, you are always so. And I remember one day when, because then even still I did not know that I was like how these words came, like, you know, transgender, homosexuals. I didn't know nothing about that. I just knew I was different. I got to know a little bit later, but homosexuality wasn't like talked about anyway. So they could always say you behave like a boy, you behave like rather a girl, and etc. Until when I was in high school, then that's when I got to know these words, you know. And I remember when there are some boys that allegedly were having sex with boys in school. For me, I wasn't, because I was, one, scared, I was bullied, I was just like confused. And when they were expelling students for practicing homosexuality in school, they began with me. And they're like, yeah, it must be that one behaves like a girl. And I'm like, wow, I wasn't even having sex with nobody. So I was thrown out of school. And then I was in papers. And then because my parents public figures, also, you know, politicians and stuff like that. So when it went into papers, it was obvious that everybody was looking out for who is this so and so's child and stuff like that. Now my life really started like becoming difficult, because then my parents told me, what you just did is what we've been talking about when you were a child. You cannot be practicing homosexuality. And now you are mature, you are an adult. Because I think I was like maybe 16, 15. You are now an adult. If you continue doing this, we shall just cut you off, because we've prayed enough. And see this shame, we are in papers everywhere. So try to be careful. If anything like that happens again, my father told me that I'll be the person to kill you, because I don't want to carry the curse of homosexuality in my family. And then my mom was like, you see, we've been struggling to look out for a boy. And this is a kind of, if you were me as a parent who has been struggling to get a boy, gave birth to 7 girls, just looking out for a boy. And I gave birth to you when I was old, because my mother gave birth to me when she was 50. How would you feel when you see this? So, and I loved my mom so much, and I didn't know what to do. So I was confused, I was always crying, you know, and then now I started looking out for things to do to make sure that I do not disappoint my mother. So I started going, then when I finished high school, then I went to another school, then I was again bullied, and then gladly, I was a brighter student. I don't know how I used to pass school, because with all that, but still I was a bright student. So then I made it to university, Makerere University, actually among the biggest universities in East Africa. And then my parents were like, you know, we have taken you to the best university. Go there and make us proud. But at that point, I was getting to that point where I feel like I want to die, because now I knew who I was. When I got into papers, because now I didn't know anybody who was homosexual, transgender, or LGBTQ in a whole. But when I went into papers now, other LGBTQ human rights activists started looking out for me. And I remember I was watching TV, and then I saw an activist called Kasha. And then I wanted to see her, I wanted to know how, you know, I was happy but scared. I'm like, wow, actually they are there. So we have them in Uganda and she's speaking on TV. So when they started looking out for me, I definitely I was very scared to meet them. But when I went to university, now I was really independent. So I met them and then they told, you know, I started now meeting other people who were like me. And the first time I met a trans person, they told me like, oh, we are so glad to meet you, Purity. Then they used to call me Kenneth. I'm a trans woman. And what are your pronouns? I'm like, what is that? I didn't know what that means. Oh, you mean you're not a trans woman? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what? I don't know. I am just confused. Probably I'm a gay man, feminine gay man. And then, you know, as time went on, I discovered, oh, so I'm a trans woman. So now I started getting to know who I am. So by the time I finished university, then I got a job. But the jobs, my parents could connect me to jobs, and then I couldn't stay there for more than maybe 3 months, because then they could know who I am. But trust me, I was trying to be in the closet. I used to go to the gym and have muscles, and then they could tell me, my friends could tell me, but you still look like a woman with muscles. I'm like, come on, with all these muscles. So anyway, so then I started like getting jobs. My parents connect me to jobs. Then I go there for 3 months or a few months, and then they just throw me out when they get to know who I am. Until another organization that I worked with, and then the boss wanted to kill me himself when he got to know that I was trans. And he was a Christian, I think a priest, and a white priest, moreover, who was like, no, this can't be happening in Africa. This can't be happening here. And you're working with a Christian organization and you're spreading homosexuality and stuff like that. So, and like we said, he's among the group of pastors that came to Uganda to preach the gospel of either kill them or pray that they vanish. God like makes them mad or something, and if they can't change, then we have a problem. They're going to spoil our children, they're going to spoil the future of, so, you know, so much hatred coming from church. So from there, then the fact that I had become known, and then I was starting to meet other people from other organizations and LGBT organizations, I got tired and I told my parents, you know what? I need to just come out and tell the world that this is who I am. And my father was like, okay. So my father had to look out for people to actually kill me. He looked out for police people, gunmen to shoot me. So much happened within that period of time that if I go through it, it can spend a whole day here. And so I had to run away. And even before I ran away, I was being haunted and by the church itself, because I was thrown out of church by my pastor, and now the entire community was looking out for this person just to kill me, because that's what they were doing. Because back home they kill you and nobody gets to know, or they kill you and nobody cares. So when they hear that there is a homosexual that has died, the people in church and Muslim, they say hallelujah, God has answered our prayers. Sodom and Gomorrah is being destroyed here in the name of Jesus. Hallelujah. So anyway, and then now I had to run away to Kenya, because Kenya is just across the border, and I had to seek for protection from UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. But when I went to Kenya, I discovered I had run away from the fire, from the hot pot, to the fire. Being a refugee in Kenya is like the worst thing that has happened to me. For the rest of my life, I'll never forget the 5 years I was in Kenya as a refugee. because it was hell, pure hell, where you reach a point and you give up on life. You just live for that moment, and if anybody says that I want to kill you, you're like, actually kill me. You are just ready to die. First of all, other refugees have to hate on you, and then also the Kenyan community has to hate on you. I thought UNHCR, by the time I went there, I thought UNHCR could like protect us, put us like somewhere safer. No, they put you in the camp with other refugees who are also way too homophobic and transphobic. It's an open space. You go there and you have to build your own small shelter in a wilderness so far away from civilization, where even like now homosexuality is like unheard of. Then you don't get the basic needs. So now I came from way so much privilege when it comes to finances and upbringing to hopelessness, to sleeping hungry. I had never known how people sleep. Of course, like back in Uganda, we have so many poor people, so I knew. But then I had never experienced it by myself. And now I started living a life of begging for 5 years for whoever cares. And together with my other friends, that trans person that I met there, we were always on our phones begging. And at some point, you could beg and you don't get the money or you don't get anything. So I do not know how many times I slept hungry. I don't know how many times people there sleep hungry. And frustrations, and then at some point we had to leave the camp because fellow refugees were killing some of our friends. They were attacking us, beating us up all that time. You know, so we had to run away to Nairobi and started renting. And now also life was so difficult. Even a landlord giving you a house was very hard. And then for us trans persons, by the time I came to Kenya, there was no like CBOs, community-based organizations for refugees, LGBT refugees. So we started creating them. And when we did, then we started like creating like safe houses where we stay. But what was so funny is that whenever we could rent a house and then we beg all of us, we say, now we're going to sit down. We're always on our phones looking out for. If I know that there is Oliver in Sweden, I send you a text like, please, my name is Spirit, I'm dying in Kenya. Can you send me some money? So it was crazy because some people could actually just insult us and stuff like that. But inside our safe house, there was a security problem where they say for us transgenders, we are the ones causing more insecurities because we are the mirror of the community. When the homophobes and transphobes come, they don't see, they easily look at the transgenders are like the face of the community. So when they come to, when they say, do you see those men who behave like women? Do you see those women who behave like men? So they just capitalize on transgenders. And so we could, fellow LGBTQ persons in our own safe houses could tell us, stay indoors, never get out, otherwise you're creating insecurities for us. And so for us transgenders, we were told you can't even like get out and go to the street. So imagine there is a moment we spent like maybe a year, you can't get out. Even when you have to buy something, somebody has to go there and buy it for you. So we were in prison, even when we were together. And then for me, at some point, I just got tired. I'm like, I ran away from Uganda to be myself. Now I'm just inside the house. And then it's my fellow LGBTQ refugees telling me I can't get out. And still I can't get out. So we got tired. And the fact that I had started becoming hardened. I was so hard. I told my fellow transgender, you know what? It's now time for us to fight for our own selves. And if it means dying, we are already half dead. So let's first of all create our own CBO for the trans persons. And let's start now letting the world know that we are dying anyway. Before we all perish and nobody gets to know, we are not even documented. because nobody could document what is happening there. What people see on social media and stuff is like a quarter of what happens. So now I started holding demonstrations at UNHCR seeking for protection. And now that's when the police could come arrest us. There was a time I held a demonstration because when they got over 20 transgenders, put them in jail, and they were raping them using sharp objects, putting in their genitals. And then when I went to, I don't want to cry anyway. When I went, by that time I was a little bit more safer because I had looked out for tips to survive. So I used to dress up like a Muslim and cover my entire face. I am those girls. Yeah, so then I could be on the street and nobody gets to know. So I go to prison to check on them. And when I looked at them, you know, with all the wounds, fresh wounds in their back, in their entire body, and they told me, Purity, we are rotting, our genitals are rotting. They insert things, whatever they get, they're like, oh, you want to have sex in a natural way? So let's help you. And I got too angry. I didn't know what to do. And so I held more demonstrations at UNHCR, and then I was also in jail, and then I joined them. And the torture started. By the time I went to jail, probably maybe the raping, inserting had ended, but to be very honest, I don't know. I reached a point where I got used to pain because we could be beaten every day. Like, I think you see that I want to cover my wounds, my scars with tattoos. But if you go to my feet and my back and my stuff, you'll be amazed what you see. There are thousands of wounds, rather scars, thousands. I reached a point where they could just I could just see blood, like they come and, with batons or with knives, with whatever it is, splashing cold water on us and, torture, and I could just see blood, but I could not feel nothing. My body had become too hardened that I don't feel no pain. So by the grace of God, we got out. And then when we got out, one of the trans friends of mine committed suicide. And then at least she started working on us slowly, and at least now the world has started getting to know and stuff like that, and we could get now the sheer torture of prison. But that's not the only time I have been in jail anyway. Even in Uganda I used to go in jail. I've been in and out of jail. Became my second home at some point. In fact, I remember in Kenya, one time I got arrested and I told the police officer, you know what? Yeah, arrest me, but can I ask you not to torture me? Just put me in a room. Don't beat me up. And I'm harmless. Don't beat me up. And then he looked at me because I was crying and stuff like that. He looked at me and but why do you like suffering? I'm like, yeah, I wish I could answer that question because I don't like it. And he put me in a room. And I don't know what came. Probably maybe the angels visited that police officer. He told the other police officer, don't torture that one. Just. We're even tired of her, because I was always in. I get out, I go back on the street to demonstrate. Then I come back, I go back. So they had gotten used to me. And anyway, to cut the story short, then UNHCR came to my rescue, and I ended up coming to Sweden. And so a lot happened. And when I came to Sweden, with that happening, whenever I could get money, the only way to run away from pain were using drugs. Me, I'd never taken alcohol until I went to Kenya, I think. No, in Uganda I used to, but occasionally. But when I went to Kenya, I now started taking alcohol. even smoking cigarettes. I had never smoked cigarettes. But the others were telling me like, you cannot manage when you're sober. So most of them, they are barren. And then it's not like the normal alcohol that you see. So it's the cheapest you can get and the worst that happens to your body. So by the time I came to Sweden, I wasn't sober. I had become a drunkard. And then now, when I came to Sweden, I was like, hallelujah, I have arrived. I was so happy, excited. My gosh, there was a lot of relief. I'm like, wow. So now at least somehow, I'm going to have a life. And so when everybody else was like, but you know, Sweden is not easy. It's going to be too cold. You're going to meet racists. You're going to meet the food is very dangerous. I'm like, you don't need to worry. I need to see that dangerous food and I eat it. Because at least now I'm going to be I was just like so happy. Yeah, but when I arrived at the airport, it was in February last year. I was welcomed with snow. It was too cold. I was like, wow, people live in inside a freezer, a refrigerator. Like, isn't this a refrigerator? No, a refrigerator. Like, how do people manage? Like, wow. So it was so much a shock. And I remember when I went to my apartment, I asked my social worker, I'm like, so how long does this happen? Like this snow thing? Like, you know, it takes like a while. I'm like, wow. So you people do you actually ever smile? Because there's nobody who smiles in this kind of coldness. So anyway, but then the excitement was also still there. So, and now I started getting to, to integrate slowly in the Swedish system. And then the excitement starts going a little bit down when reality hits in. Then that's when I discover that, people here also struggle. And then that's when I get so much depressed over the weather. Like they say, the food is very, very strange. Your food doesn't have a taste sometimes. It's just like a lot of spices put together to make a meal. You even eat, like I was like, wow, people here even eat raw meat. And so I was like, wow, you eat potatoes and they just don't taste like potatoes. I'm like, wow. Anyway, to cut the story short, I now start meeting people and then reality hits in. And then I discover it's also not easy to be trans, black, and a new immigrant in Sweden. And then when I meet my fellow other transgenders and from back home, and I ask them like, how is your life here? Like, it's very hard, it's very difficult. We keep meeting transphobes here and there. But it's obvious that, e.g. for me, Purity, I'm black. When somebody's passing here, it's obvious somebody's going to look at me. Because I'm a little bit different. So then I started like seeing the struggles. And then because I am a very, I don't know how I can call it, but I am a hopeful person. My heart told me, Purity, you have to be resilient and live in Sweden. This is your new safe haven. So, with all the struggles, because I was I was introduced to so much that is negative here, but I chose not to look at life negatively. For a person who comes from that kind of hopelessness to this, there is no way you can again be down on yourself. And so that's how I started now like chasing my career, trying to figure out my life. I'm still figuring out my life, but I've been trying. It's very difficult because for one, when you get here, I think there is a label they put on refugees. You must not be having skills, you must not be educated, so there is that. And then when you're trans, they feel like we are always into looking out for advocating maybe for our rights and stuff like that. So we do not have careers, we do not. So they feel like you don't have skills. And then of course when you're black again, there is also that part of it. Black immigrants are treated way much differently from white immigrants. It's obvious, I see it all the time. So for me, I sat down and told myself that purity. And everybody told me it's going to be a struggle. You're going to just go out there and you get the dirty job, that's all you will get. In your next 10 years, don't expect your degree to work here. It's not going to happen. And then you're trans, there are some organizations, there are some entities that won't hire you because even like, I think all the trans persons here, they also go through it. But I told myself that, you know what, purity, don't live your life in fear again. And that's what keeps me going. When there is an opportunity, go there, chase it, and they just deny you. But just go there. So if you ask me what I do everything. And, you know, and I always, when I meet somebody and then I share my testimony, I'm like, but there is also more to that. I am also a social scientist, I'm a model, I'm an actor, I can do so many other things. So don't just look at my sad testimony and forget that I have skills and stuff like that. Because truth be told, in most cases I meet people who only are interested in hearing my sad story. But if you say, do you have like a job opening that you, or maybe something to do and stuff like that, like, maybe we shall get back to you. So anyways, that happens a lot. But for me, when an opportunity comes, I'll go for it. I get denied, I look out for another one. Never think that when you meet, you say, Purity, can you do this? There is no in my mouth. I always say yes. And then they're like, oh, come and do this. Because when I started modeling, I remember when I wore the rainbow dress, the Amsterdam Foundation rainbow dress at World Pride. Oh my gosh, that was like my most moment. I was like, I had arrived. I was like, wow, this black girl in this big dress on a big stage. I was always looking around. I'm like, hallelujah. It's a black girl in a big dress. So I had never been a model. But when they asked me, Purity, we are looking out for a model that can model this dress. It's a big dress that, you know, you have to take like hours dressing it up. And then you have to stand on a bigger platform. So you have to have some confidence. Do you know anybody who, we would love to give it to a black person because it represents them who come from probably countries where it is illegal. So do you know anybody? I'm like, I'm here. They're like, hey, but are you a model? I'm like, of course. I've been doing this for a while. So, but you know, but I went and actually did well. And now I started going to YouTube to know how people pose. You know, I started like, you know, modeling in my own house. And I went, and that's how my modeling career started. When it comes to acting, I'm now acting with the National Black Theatre of Sweden with Dramaton. We have a stage drama actually coming up in April. I am just an extra, a dancer and just an extra. But when they were looking out, they put out a call. I applied. And then the lady called me and they're like, but are you an actor? I'm like, yeah, I have been acting. Like, by the way, in high school, I won so many trophies. And in high school, that time I acted as a, you know, because I was in a single school, whenever they could look out for a person to act like a girl, they could look out for me, but it wasn't like professional acting. Like, yeah, I'm an actor, professional. I just need a job. So when I went to audition, I had already gone through, like I already knew exactly what they are looking out for, and I already knew what I started asking like the people around, what is the movie about? What is the drama about? So I went there, and then when they auditioned, I outshined myself. They're like, actually you've been acting. So have you ever acted on a big screen and things like that? I'm like, yeah, I was supposed to be in Rafiki, but I was in jail, but I acted. Like it's so huge. Like, have you watched Rafiki? It's so huge. I was supposed to be a main actor there. I wasn't going to be a main actor. But they say like, it's nice. So, and then, you know, so anytime so it's my survival tip. It's my survival tip, trying to figure out what I can do and what I can't do. And also the fact that when I came here, I had to go to rehab. That is also a story for another day, because rehab was very difficult for me. Very difficult. I spent there 3 months, but ouch. It was difficult, but I'm glad I went there resiliently. I was the only black person. They had never met a trans person in that rehab. It was really, really difficult. But when I came out of rehab, that's when I started saying, so now that's why I say that I'm a mental health champion, because I see so many trans persons, most of the ones I know, the new immigrants, struggle with drugs, but they don't want to go to rehab because it's torture. Even for any trans person, I think rehab is not yet healthy for anybody. So I now thought about my career. I'm like, maybe I'm going to do a course in mental health or psychology and stuff like that. Maybe, so I'm still trying to figure out myself, stuff like that. But I'm glad that I've been here for 1 year and I'm already figuring out so many things. You know, I am acting. I now work with Aisha, the president of Black Lives Matter. I modeled there as well. I mean, like, I go speak on events and lectures and stuff like that. So I wouldn't, should I say it's easy? No. I don't know where this girl gets her strength also. Because there are moments when I'm so, because like you see here, people get depressed so easily because there is a lot to depress us. And I see it. But then for me, it's extra. You think about the fact that you don't have a family anyway. You are all by yourself. You know, the other day I was asking somebody, like, by the way, I haven't thought about if I died right now, where would I be buried? Like, wow, I've never thought about that. So for me, I mean, like, there is a lot, but I told myself that I don't want to live my life in fear again. It comes, the depression comes, but I have crossed so many difficult rivers, and I always tell myself when another difficult river comes, I'll cross it. You know, I'll cross it. Because I have so much to depress me, and I always try to just not go there, because I know if I go there, I have pain that hasn't healed, a lot of it. I have history that when I think about it, I can go, you know, commit suicide or things like. I am a delicate person mentally, so I don't want to live my life in fear. And now I have my transitioning journey. It's also depressing because back in Kenya, I was taking hormones through black market. I get to Sweden, they tell me, no, you stop the hormones, you wait for 2 years. I go back to zero. I withdraw symptoms of not taking the hormones. I mean, like, then the entire journey of doing research and investigations, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you're investigating what? I am here because I'm a trans person. Your government allowed UNHCR to bring me here because I was trans. That's enough investigations. And then I also keep asking. I also asked somebody, my doctor, I'm like, even as they do investigations, can they also allow me to be a part of that before that 1 or 2 years comes for me to start all that? Can they allow me to be a part of, because I'm black? The hormones I'm taking, I'm not even sure whether they are meant for a black body. When they were doing research, did they put in mind that there would be black bodies. Today, when they were doing research findings, how many black bodies were tried on these hormones and how many weren't. I mean, like, I have so many questions, and then I know I need them, but then I'm like, are they even meant for me? I'm genetically wired differently. I am black, my body is wired differently from a white body. So, are these hormones meant for me? And then also the fact that I don't like how they put us in groupings. It reminds me that maybe for us back in Africa, those days we used to live better lives before colonials came and messed us up. Because if you asked me, what's your gender? And I say, I'm a trans lady. What if that is not even my gender? What if my gender is black? Because it can be anything, you know. What if I just don't want somebody to give me a word that is meant for them, because, you know, these are English words formulated and stuff like that, but I'm not English, I'm not a white person. So if you tell me such kind of word, I would say, I'm proudly black, that's my gender, and my identity is, so like I have like a lot of confusion about so much. And then when I just have like to meet racists, which I actually meet, when I came here, racism wasn't my problem because I wasn't raised in it anyway, so I could always hear about it. So now that I'm in it, I keep meeting them. So many. And when I went to rehab, it was actually even obvious. I almost wanted, like, you know, to fight somebody so hard, because I was in a group of people that are not sober, so they say anything. And somebody said, oh, how come there is a black person here? I wouldn't have come here. And then I hear they are trans, like, what's wrong with that? Gladly, I always tell people that, you know, it's your loss. Because for me, when I meet, now I know, I know racists, and I know even how they look like. When they look at me, I always look in their faces, and I have this deep, when I look at you and you are a racist, I make sure I look direct in your face to show you that this girl doesn't care. It's your problem. Carry that curse, because racism is a curse that white people carried on from your forefathers and whatever that brought to you. It is your curse that goes on from generation to generation. So if you want to carry it on, but then so long as you don't hurt me. So I tell that person, like, now I'm here and I'm black. So long as you can't beat me up. And he's like, I can't even beat you up. I'm like, you're just joking. I'm black girl. I can slap you once and just vanish. So there is a lot that I have, like, not in you. Then of course there's transphobia that is hidden here. You know, I hate going to hospitals, because when you go to hospital, then you have to explain yourself. Then I don't know why, I don't know whether other trans persons find it hard to go to hospital more so when I have to be at, thank goodness I don't fall so much sick. I feel sick when I just come, but then when I went to hospital and I was going to get admitted, and then the nurses were like, we are looking for a ward to put you. And then I discovered they are just confused of where to put me and stuff like that. So there is a lot of that. And for me, that's why I also still tell myself, Paige, don't live your life in fear. I label myself, and when I move on the streets, I am always like, because I know everybody's going to look at me, I am always like, I'm a celebrity. You know, my rainbow is here. You have to, like, this is my survival tip also, because nobody is going to ask me a question, because it's already written all over my face. So sometimes I'm in the buses and everybody's looking at me and I'm busy swinging my hair. I'm like, I can't say much, but I am here. Because living in fear, when you come from a background like mine, then you will do something funny to yourself, because the pain we have, some of it doesn't heal at all. There are moments when I am so down. There are moments when I don't figure out stuff. Like I said, I'm doing this and that, but then I still lack sometimes. I don't have like enough money because I don't have a permanent job. It's here and there, and then I have people back home in Kenya, my fellow trans persons and LGBTQ refugees down there that I have to support because I've been in a place of not having nothing. And for me to have 3 meals a day when my friends are, don't have nothing to eat, it's a struggle. But I am so thankful that I have the courage and the energy to always tell myself, Purity, your life is now better. It's not like how it was. There is more to the future, and if you live it in fear, then you're not going to live at all. So when the depressing things come, when that moment comes to cry, sometimes I do, I allow myself cry. After my tears, I'm like, Purity, go out there, take a walk, go find a friend and chat. I love cracking a lot of jokes and stuff like that. And sometimes people ask me, but where do you draw your strength? I also don't know, but I just resiliently told myself my strength is that I don't want to live my life in fear. And so that's basically Purity.